Hi, Martin. It's a pleasure to welcome you today as the founder of Sierra to In Conversation With. Maybe before we start, you can tell our listeners a bit about your background story, how you ended up in sales, why you love being in sales.
Yeah, sure. So I'm an entrepreneur ever since I started my professional career. I'm a business guy by education, but was always thrilled by the idea of building up my own businesses. And I would say if you want to be an entrepreneur, you'd better be in sales rather sooner than later. So I ended up in sales quite naturally. And I totally love it because I really think that for the success of an entrepreneur, as for any other business, sales is what really matters. At times, I would say that the most important role in a tech company is sales, and not everyone would agree, but I really think sales is what um, makes it successful in the end.
Great. At the moment, you're leading the sales and marketing team at your latest startup, Sierra. How did you came up with the idea of Sierra? Was it a problem you discovered in a previous job? Was it more like a passion that you followed? Was this idea of building this assistant born?
Yeah, it's both. It was very much driven out of my own experience in my prior company, where I was responsible for the sales team and where I built out the sales team, and where I realized a bunch of problems. And talking to fellow entrepreneurs, I realized this is not a problem that only we had, but pretty much everyone has, building out a sales team, and that was um, training being off the matter to make other people successful. At the same time, I realized how hard it is to transfer concepts into actual doing. And what I also realized is how hard it is for everyone, not just for the team you build out, but for yourself as a sales leader as well, to deal with the tech stack that surrounds you, or that you basically um, trying to run the business on. So um, from these observations, I thought that sales really needs an update on various levels. And as I said, given um, my belief that sales is what really matters, I I was intrigued to follow up, to follow this opportunity. And from these observations, I basically came to realize that there is a huge opportunity with automation as a broader trend in business software, but basically thinking about how will automation affect sales, not only today. We can talk about that certainly in a couple of minutes, but if you think automation to an end, what does that actually mean? And from that, the idea of a sales assistant tool was born, and this is how we started Sierra.
Cool. So you mentioned several challenges that SaaS sales teams are facing every day. What you say are the biggest mistakes the SaaS sales teams are making when facing those challenges or in a general daily sales flow?
I wouldn't necessarily say mistakes, but rather say or comment on what I observe as a common challenge, particularly in SaaS. Companies are all looking to build out a scalable model, and we all see how revenue operations is a trending topic. So everyone's basically looking at building out a marketing and sales and customer success team that can be managed like any other operation, like a machine, basically. And the biggest challenge here is that the parts of that machine that need to work together are all humans, and a lot of outcomes in that machine are not deterministic. Like if you build a machine in a production floor, you can pretty much tell what will come out of the machine in the end, ideally, right? But that is totally different if you build a machine out of different sales roles, selling different products to different people in different states of minds, and so on and so forth. So I think that is the biggest overarching challenge for sales teams. And some are obviously doing that very well, others are just getting started. But that's the core, say, challenge.
What are the companies doing right? You just said there are some doing it pretty well, managing it pretty well already. So what is what they're doing?
Yeah. So I think what you should really do very early on as you build out your sales team is think about what is the process like you want to manage in terms of customer journey. So think the process from your customer apparently, but then what does that mean for your organization? So where do you generate leads? How do you score leads? How do you make sure to stay engaged with leads? Because people are obviously not ready to buy when you are ready to sell. Obviously, you're ready to sell anytime, while customers are not ready to buy anytime. So that's step number one. And then also have dedicated teams on certain customer groups, have dedicated roles on certain steps of the sales process. So that's obviously breaking out sales development, account management, which is typically done in SaaS organizations. It is a good handover to customer success, having customer success not only as product support, but also upsell, management, and then measuring all this from start to end. This is what really allows people to build this machine. And if you basically miss one step of the chain, you will have a hard time to manage it through. So step number one, and that's what I would recommend, even if you're a small team, start measuring the stuff you do and build a hypothesis on what you're doing there and why things work and why they don't, and basically change and improve on each and every step of the process, because that will allow you to manage your revenue operations. And something that is certainly worth sharing, when I talk to sales leaders, they all have that goal, but there is no blueprint really. So it really is different for each and every company. So the good news is it is something that will protect you from competition if you get it right. It's something you can really work and win on. And it is something you better get started with today and improve as you develop your team and company.
How does sales technology come into this whole process that you just mentioned?
Yeah. So I think if we look at where has sales tech taken us so far, the last, or a big wave that everyone is familiar with are obviously CRM systems, where sales organizations started to be some sort of data driven in terms of just documenting the stuff they were doing, making sure there's no crossfire from different reps with the same customer across different territories, making sure you get some reports out of what you're doing. So that was step number one. I would say currently we're in a second wave of automation. So CRM per se is no automation; it's just data management. But we've seen a second wave of automation, very much looking at how to automate manual tasks that are around outreach. So we would say, we would talk about social selling, right? How can you automate tasks of reaching out to people on social networks through email campaigns, through sequences, through content management. These are all things obviously very much connected to marketing as well. but generally speaking, it's a wave of automation, very much looking at different mundane tasks that you would otherwise do manually with certain tools. And thinking this automation to an end and looking at where we're heading, and this very much ties in with what we're doing at Ciara and why we're building the Ciara assistant as well. There is a next step of automation in the actual conversation that sales teams have. Why is that? Number one, it is so important to make sure that when people talk to customers, they have the right support, and currently they don't. Everything you've seen in terms of automation is actually outside of the customer conversation, but it's in the customer conversations where deals are progressing, where deals are stalling, where business is made, where upsell is made, where you really understand what your customers' problems are, and so on and so forth. So automation on the level of real-time interaction is the next step, while form automation is by no way real-time. Number two, if you just look at where where are we in terms of technology available, everyone in terms of consumer behavior have their voice assistants in the living room. So it's just natural to obviously interact through your voice and get support on whatever you want to do, whether you want to check the weather or book a ticket or what have you. It is to me absolutely clear that if you are in a sales role and you're talking to customers all day long, we will start leveraging this technology and build assistance and help on top of your voice during customer conversations. So this is the third wave of sales automation and tooling that is currently emerging.
Mm-hmm. So I quickly summarized, you said real-time automation and voice intelligence are like the two drivers of sales tech in the future. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is right.
Currently, I guess most of the sales organizations are built around a CRM system. It's where everything is stored, where most activities are done, where you track your KPIs, where you have your dashboards, your reports, etc. How does the classic CRM system, as we know it now, fit into this future of sales tech?
Yeah. So what does the CRM do today, and what is its strength? It's certainly good at structuring certain information, and it is great to build reports based on that information. It comes with a tremendous weakness at the same time, because someone has to enter all that information, and I haven't met a single, not one, sales leader or sales rep telling me that they love putting their data into the CRM. So what typically happens is that people are pushed to input their data, so they just input what they have to input, and they would get reports out of the CRM that are somewhat helpful, but not really. And that's mostly because they are not real time. They are made up in a way. They are very subjective in the sense that sales reps enter a probability, they enter a state, they enter a certain, scoring classification of a customer, of a lead, what have you. There's a lot of guesswork in the reporting. So it comes out as a report, but everyone knows that there is a lot of, there's a lack of precision in this data. And what I think what is the biggest downside of this is that CRMs have really grown from something that would initially support decision making or support also your work planning. They have grown into something that is mostly in your way as a sales rep. It's mostly something that you have to do. That obviously there's tools that help you to do it faster, but still you have to do it. It's something that is just disturbing your workflow. It has zero value. It doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't get your customer anywhere. So this is where I see CRM today. And now, how does this wave of real-time assistance and voice-enabled technology, how does it combine? So number one, it will not replace CRM. That's I think it's history repeating such well-established software stacks. They are not to be replaced ever, maybe. And there will always be good reason for CRMs, but it combines with the CRM in a sense that deal management, and that is what happens in real time. When you do have a customer conversation, particularly in inside sales teams. So I'm mostly talking about teams that are not out in the field, but that are selling to customers through video calls and the likes. Everything they do with the customer happens on a call, 99%. And assistant tools are able to support these meetings, each and every one, keep them on track through all the meetings they have, capture all the information from these meetings, and basically makes things like note-taking and classifications and reminders and follow-up tasks and all these things unnecessary, because they take this out of the CRM world where it is in a database somewhere and take it to a real-time flow. And this is where it connects. So assistants like Sierra, for instance, are adding to the CRM in a way that they help manage the deal as long as the deal is on. But the CRM will still be good for certain reporting, and assistants are not replacing the CRM.
Why do you think now is the right time for sales teams implementing real-time sales-enabled software?
So first of all, I really think it is it's this emerging technology that has come to a point where it is so powerful that you can reap the benefits. If you look at voice technology, there's been experimentation around voice technology probably for a decade. And if you remember the first voice-enabled tools, be it in your car or somewhere else, it was kind of fun checking them out, but you would usually get to a point of realizing they are just not getting the job done. This is different today. Today, voice technology is so strong that it really detects intent. It really detects context. It transcribes on a basically perfect level. And with that technology in place, the opportunity, the window of opportunity has opened up, and we see how companies start embracing it. Just putting that technology under the productivity of their team, or put it in the hands of their teams to increase productivity, and they see immediate effect. It's not a big thing. It's basically not changing any process. It's not changing any go-to-market strategy. It's just putting it in front of your people and let them do the job they've done before, and just help them by listening to what they are doing, nudging them on taking a deal in a certain direction, answering a question in a certain way, helping them document calls without wasting time on note taking and so on. So it just makes total sense. So that's why the time is now, really.
What's next on the horizon for Sierra?
So we are launching an improved version of the assistant this month, actually. And what it does, it really covers the entire deal process. So we started the CR assistant for mostly the sales development role, and it is now built out to cover both SDRs and AEs, and particularly well the handover process, because the assistant will basically allow SDRs to start qualifying a lead, and then bring in an AE to the same assistant view and let them work based on the initial conversations. So that is a big step for us on the product side. And on the market side, what we see right now is there are big software companies, but also other teams coming to us, and we're really busy working with them and getting them onboarded. So for us, it's mostly about growth, really, and we're happy to work with new customers and support sales teams. So these are our immediate next steps this year.
Thank you for the great insights. Do you have any tips and tricks as a closing remark you want to share?
Yeah, my number one remark would be ask the right questions, and it's probably heard it before, and it seems to be easy, but it's really difficult. It happens to me as someone being in sales for a long time. It happens that you lose a deal just because you missed asking certain questions, and you realize when it's lost that you didn't ask the question. So make sure what is it that you need to understand to just be in the first place be able to make a proper proposal to your customer. It's not really about pitching, not really. Not in B2B sales. Customers are not looking to be pitched. They are looking to be understood, and they are looking for someone to really know what's going on and be able to help them. So be that consultant, be that partner, more than someone trying to sell as fast as possible. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Martin. I guess that's a wrap.
Thank you. Thank you, Veronica.